You know how every superhero movie starts with a city getting destroyed? Well, imagine that. But without the superheroes, special effects, or popcorn. Just real American cities trying to hold themselves together with duct tape, federal grants, and thoughts and prayers. From coast to coast, the warning lights are flashing red. Crumbling infrastructure, sky-high crime, debt piled higher than a Thanksgiving plate, and politicians promising to fix it next term. Some of these places look like they've been through an economic hangover that never ended, while others are still pretending everything's fine. Like a car on fire, with the driver insisting it's just the engine running hot. We're talking about cities that were once booming. Steel towns, tech hubs, tourist magnets. Now flirting with collapse faster than a crypto exchange in 2022. And yeah, some of them will surprise you. So grab a cup of coffee, or something stronger. Because here comes the list no mayor wants to be on. 10 U.S. cities on the edge of collapse by 2026. 1. San Francisco, California. Once upon a time, San Francisco was the crown jewel of innovation. The city that gave the world tech billionaires, sourdough bread, and the idea that everyone should pay $3,500 a month for a 400-square-foot studio. Fast forward to 2025, and it's looking less like Silicon Valley chic and more like a real-life episode of The Walking Dead. San Francisco is what happens when a city tries to run on vibes, venture capital, and oat milk. Downtown office towers, once buzzing with coders, startups, and overpriced sushi lunches, are now emptier than a college frat house during finals week. The remote work revolution didn't just dent the city's economy, it kneecapped it. The result? Empty buildings, falling tax revenue, and city budgets that look like bad math homework. And then there's the street situation. Between sky-high living costs and out-of-control homelessness, San Francisco has become the poster child for how not to manage a boomtown. Locals joke that it's the only place where your car gets broken into while you're still sitting in it. Tourists used to come for the Golden Gate Bridge. Now they come for TikTok videos titled, "I Survived San Francisco." City officials are, of course, promising a revitalization plan. They've got task forces, committees, and consultants making six figures to say things like community engagement and urban reimagining. But you can't reimagine a city if no one can afford to live there anymore. Tech companies have bailed, small businesses are dying, and the city's tax base is running for the hills, or more accurately, to Austin. Don't get me wrong, San Francisco's still beautiful. The fog's still rolling in, the cable cars still clang, and the bridge still shines at sunset. But beneath that postcard view, the city's finances are hanging by a thread, and that thread's about to snap. So yeah, if America's urban collapse had a fashion line, San Francisco would be the runway model. Glamorous, expensive, and one bad fiscal quarter away from falling flat. 2. Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, the city that once defined the American hustle. Home of deep dish pizza, jazz legends, and politicians who could make Houdini jealous with how fast they make money disappear. It's the beating heart of the Midwest, though lately that heartbeat's been skipping a few payments. For decades, Chicago was the city that refused to die, rising from fires, crime waves, and political scandals that would make a Netflix series blush. But here we are in 2025, and even Chi-Town's legendary toughness is starting to crack. The city's finances are a mess. Pension obligations through the roof, property taxes climbing faster than the Willis Tower, and residents heading for the suburbs like it's the last train out. Let's talk about crime, because Chicago can't seem to stop being Chicago. The city's been in an arms race between reform and reality. Downtown's got more boarded-up shops than open ones, and small businesses are pulling out faster than campaign donors after Election Day. Even tourists are starting to think twice. When your travel slogan could be, "Come for the pizza, stay because your rental car's gone," it's not a good sign. And then there's the politics. Chicago's got more layers than a lasagna, and none of them taste good. City Hall keeps talking about revitalization, but every time they fix one problem, 3 more pop up. It's like playing whack-a-mole with taxpayer money. The truth is, Chicago's not dying. It's limping. The bones are still there. The skyline, the sports, the culture, the grit. But under the shine, there's a growing sense of fatigue. Too much debt, too little trust, and a shrinking middle class that's tired of footing the bill. So as we cruise out of town, past the boarded-up storefronts and for sale signs, you can't help but think, Chicago doesn't need another slogan. It needs an intervention. Before we move on to the next city on our America on the Edge tour, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the chaos. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next.
3. New York City. New York City is like that friend who still wears leather jackets in the summer. Stylish, stubborn, and a little delusional about reality. From the skyline that looks like it belongs in a movie poster to the smell of hot pretzels and sewage on every corner, NYC still dazzles, if you ignore the cracks. The city that once defined ambition now defines high rents, absurd living costs, and the constant hum of existential panic. Middle-class families are leaving faster than tourists spotting a pigeon, and the only folks thriving are billionaires and influencers who call a $15 coffee budget-friendly. Then there's the subway, which doubles as both transportation and a survival game. Riders dodge puddles, rats, and performers who think every train car is a stage for interpretive dance. It's a daily reminder that New York isn't just a city, it's a contact sport. Meanwhile, small businesses, the backbone of the city's charm, are getting crushed under soaring rents, rising taxes, and competition from endless chain stores. A mom-and-pop shop closing down in Manhattan is basically a city-wide tragedy. Like a tiny, tragic Shakespearean play with a Wi-Fi password. The neighborhoods tell their own story. Manhattan still glimmers for tourists, but the outer boroughs are struggling to keep up. Brooklyn and Queens feel like they're trapped between gentrification and abandonment, with locals navigating rent hikes while dodging potholes the size of mini-fridges. Even the arts scene is under pressure. Galleries and theaters are folding, replaced by boutique yoga studios and overpriced smoothie bars that somehow think they're edgy. It's a slow, creeping collapse, hidden behind Instagram filters and neon lights. Yet for all its problems, New York refuses to admit defeat. There's a stubborn pride here. The city acts like a fighter who's taken a beating but refuses to tap out. People complain loudly, yes, but they also keep showing up, hustling, and trying to make it work. The energy, chaos, and audacity that make NYC famous are still there, but the cracks are widening. If 2026 hits hard, the Big Apple may lose some of its shine. But don't bet against New Yorkers. They'll rebuild, gripe about it endlessly, and somehow make it look cool. 4. Los Angeles, California.
Los Angeles used to be all palm trees, movie stars, and ambition dripping from every sunset. Now it's more like palm trees, traffic jams, and expensive avocado toast. The city's economy leans heavily on entertainment, tourism, and a population willing to pay $4 for a cup of coffee that tastes suspiciously like burnt hope. But, as of 2025, even Hollywood's magic is starting to fizzle. Movie studios are downsizing, production costs are skyrocketing, and the middle class is vanishing faster than an Oscar-winning actor's humility. Traffic alone could qualify as a natural disaster. Freeways are clogged from dawn to dusk, and the term rush hour is basically a joke. It's rush all day. People spend more time commuting than actually living, and local news loves reporting on gridlock emergencies, as if it's some rare catastrophe. Meanwhile, the city's infrastructure is aging like a forgotten prop on a set, with potholes, power outages, and water restrictions making residents feel like they're living in a low-budget dystopian remake of La La Land. Homelessness is another glaring subplot. You can't drive 5 blocks in LA without seeing tents lining the streets, sometimes right next to a luxury boutique. The juxtaposition is almost surreal. Ferraris parked outside a coffee shop while someone sleeps on the sidewalk. It's a city built on dreams, but for a growing number of people, those dreams come with a side of despair. And the local government? They promise solutions, task forces, and policies, but too often it's like watching a film where the special effects budget ran out halfway through. Yet, despite all the chaos, Los Angeles still has that star power swagger. People flock here chasing fame, fortune, or just the idea that they can make it big. The city might be teetering financially, socially, and structurally, but it still seduces newcomers with its glimmering skyline and cinematic promise. If LA collapses in the next few years, it won't go quietly. It will probably do it in slow motion, with dramatic music and a perfectly timed sunset. Because, of course, it's Los Angeles.
5. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit used to roar. The Motor City churned out cars, jobs, and confidence that fueled America's mid-century boom. Today, it's more like a city hitting the snooze button on its comeback alarm, repeatedly. Downtown has pockets of vibrancy, yes, with hip bars, art galleries, and coffee shops popping up. But wander a few blocks and you'll see abandoned houses, boarded-up factories, and streets that feel like they belong in a post-apocalyptic movie set. The city has tried to reinvent itself a dozen times. Tech hubs, art districts, revitalization programs. Detroit has thrown everything but the kitchen sink at its problems. Yet the old issues linger. Unemployment, underfunded schools, and a tax base that's still thinner than a budget airline's safety instructions. For every trendy loft or craft brewery, there's a block that looks like time forgot it existed. It's like the city is constantly auditioning for a role in a drama about resilience, and the critics are brutal. Crime and public safety are also part of Detroit's daily narrative. The city has made strides in certain neighborhoods, but others feel trapped in a loop of property crime, gang activity, and overworked local police. Residents joke, half seriously, that Detroit is a place where your neighbor could be your best friend or your next cautionary tale. And yet, there's something stubbornly American about the place. Folks keep showing up, keep rebuilding, and keep believing the next boom is around the corner. Detroit's story is one of grit, history, and patience tested to the limit. The city has collapsed before, economically, socially, even morally in the eyes of some outsiders, and each time it clawed back a little. Whether it will finally stabilize by 2026 or keep teetering on the edge remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, Detroit refuses to quietly fade. It may be messy, unpredictable, and sometimes heartbreaking, but it's still very much alive, even if it snores a little along the way. Oh, and by the way, if you're enjoying this wild ride through America's edge-of-collapse cities, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. It keeps the chaos coming straight to your feed. 6. Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore has always had an edge. A mix of blue-collar toughness, historic pride, and a skyline that looks like it was sketched by someone who half-watched a cityscape tutorial on YouTube. But by 2025, that edge has started to feel less like a charm and more like a warning sign. The city struggles with high crime rates, budget shortfalls, and neighborhoods that feel caught in a tug-of-war between potential and neglect. It's the kind of place where you can find a world-class seafood restaurant on one block
and abandoned row houses on the next. Public services are stretched thin. Schools, roads, and transit infrastructure have been running on fumes for years, and city budgets haven't exactly kept up with the bills. Residents joke that a pothole could swallow a sedan whole, and honestly, they might be right. City leadership is constantly promising renewal, but every plan seems to arrive 2 steps behind reality. It's like trying to patch a sinking ship with chewing gum. Baltimore's social fabric is fraying too. Generations of families face economic stagnation, limited job opportunities, and rising living costs, while outsiders still see the city as charming. There's a tension between old-school neighborhoods where everyone knows your name and modern developments that feel disconnected, expensive, and somewhat alien. This push and pull creates a city that's perpetually teetering, simultaneously hopeful, frustrated, and sarcastically self-aware. And yet, despite all its problems, Baltimore refuses to disappear from the map. Its sports fans scream louder than the budget cuts. Its seafood still draws tourists, and locals keep adapting in ways outsiders often underestimate. Charm City's chaos is part of its identity. Messy, unpredictable, and unapologetically Baltimore. But make no mistake, if 2026 hits hard, the cracks could widen faster than a crab cake falls apart in a toaster oven.
7. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia, birthplace of America, home of the Liberty Bell, cheesesteaks, and a population that's stubbornly loyal to both sports teams and its street corners. Once a thriving hub of industry and culture, Philly in 2025 is like that grandparent who tells stories of glory days while trying not to trip over the bills on the floor. The city's economy is struggling to reinvent itself, balancing tech startups and old-school manufacturing with uneven success. Crime and infrastructure are Philly's constant headaches. Some neighborhoods thrive, but others feel frozen in time, complete with abandoned buildings, crumbling sidewalks, and streetlights that flicker like they're signaling for help. Residents joke that crossing the city without encountering construction, potholes, or a honking horn is a miracle. And miracles are in short supply these days. Public services operate on a do-your-best, hope-for-the-best model, which, in Philly, translates roughly to good luck, buddy. Taxes are rising, pensions are underfunded, and the city's budget seems to run on sheer willpower and Philly stubbornness. Small businesses struggle to stay afloat, while national chains move in, promising revitalization that usually means overpriced lattes and fewer local jobs. And yet, the city still has grit, a sense of resilience that's part pride, part defiance, part, if we survive this, we survive anything. Despite the challenges, Philly refuses to fold. Residents still take pride in their history, their neighborhoods, and their ability to endure more than most cities could handle. But as 2026 looms, the question isn't whether Philadelphia will collapse entirely, it's whether it will continue limping along in chaos, stubbornly surviving while quietly hoping for another miracle, one cheesesteak at a time. 8. Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland, home of rock and roll, LeBron-era memories, and a skyline that sometimes looks like it gave up halfway through construction. Once a bustling industrial hub, by 2025, the city feels like it's caught between nostalgia and survival mode. Downtown is slowly revitalizing, sure, but wander outside the cool districts, and you'll find abandoned factories, empty lots, and neighborhoods where time seems to have pressed the pause button. The economy? Let's just say it's trying. Manufacturing jobs aren't coming back, and tech isn't exactly flocking to the shores of Lake Erie. Small businesses struggle to stay open, while chain stores slide in like tourists who never really understand the city's history. Residents joke that Cleveland's motto should be, "We'll get there, eventually." Maybe. The humor is self-deprecating, but necessary. Surviving here requires it. Crime, infrastructure, and public services are the classic trio of headaches. Roads that feel like they're auditioning for an obstacle course, potholes big enough to swallow a bicycle, and a police force that's doing more with less. Add to that budget shortfalls and aging public schools, and Cleveland is basically trying to juggle chainsaws while riding a unicycle. Impressive, but scary. Still, there's something uniquely Cleveland about it. Locals cling to sports, music, and their resilient spirit. The city may stumble, it may struggle, but it's not going anywhere quietly. Clevelanders will survive, complain loudly, and probably make a mean pierogi while doing it. In 2026, the city may still be teetering, but it's the kind of teetering only Clevelanders could manage. Stubborn, sarcastic, and somehow charming in the chaos. 9. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, home of the Gateway Arch, toasted ravioli, and more urban contradictions than anyone can count. By 2025, the city feels like it's stuck in the middle of a what if. What if industry hadn't left? What if neighborhoods were thriving? What if the city budget balanced itself automatically? Spoiler? None of that happened. The city's economy has been on life support for a while. Manufacturing jobs are long gone. Tech hasn't exactly rushed in, and local businesses are struggling to keep up with rising costs. Residents joke that thriving is just a suggestion, not a reality. Downtown St. Louis has seen some improvement: hip bars, craft breweries, and boutique coffee shops. But wander a few blocks and you're greeted by abandoned lots and buildings that have probably been empty longer than most residents have lived there. Crime and infrastructure remain stubborn challenges. Some neighborhoods feel like you need a survival guide just to get through a single block. Public services are stretched thin, and city leadership keeps promising revitalization plans that are basically just wishful thinking wrapped in a PowerPoint. St. Louis is like that friend who's always trying to improve, but somehow keeps tripping over the same problems. You can't help but root for them, even when it's painful. Still, St. Louis has heart. Residents are resilient, communities cling tightly to their identity, and local pride runs deep. The city might teeter on the edge of collapse in 2026, but it will do so with sarcasm, stubbornness, and probably a toasted ravioli in hand. It's the kind of place that could surprise you. Not necessarily with a boom, but with its refusal to quit quietly. 10. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans, a city that dances to its own beat, serves history on a platter, and somehow survives everything the universe throws at it. Hurricanes? Check. Floods? Check. Economic challenges that would make most cities fold? Double check. By 2025, the Big Easy is still charming tourists with jazz, po' boys, and beads, but underneath the music, the city's finances and infrastructure are hitting some sour notes. The economy relies heavily on tourism, entertainment, and culture, which is great until a downturn hits or natural disasters strike. Residents joke that their entire city runs on gumbo, gumption, and tips from visitors. Housing is expensive for locals, and public services often feel like improvisational jazz, beautiful in theory, messy in execution. Yet somehow, the city keeps moving, tapping its foot, and carrying on like it always does. Crime and inequality remain challenges, and parts of the city feel frozen in time, either nostalgically or tragically. But there's resilience here that defies logic. Communities rebuild after floods, neighborhoods come together during crises, and the culture refuses to be silenced. It's a city that has survived hurricanes and economic storms alike, sometimes barely, but always with flair. If New Orleans falls apart in 2026, it won't go quietly.
Expect trumpet solos echoing down empty streets, second-line parades through boarded-up blocks, and locals shaking their heads while still insisting, "We'll be fine, eventually." Because that's New Orleans. Chaotic, vibrant, struggling, and utterly unkillable. So, there you have it. 10 U.S. cities dancing precariously on the edge of collapse by 2026. From the Golden Gate to the Gulf Coast, the picture is clear. Rising costs, aging infrastructure, and social strain are pushing even the proudest cities toward their breaking points. Some are limping, some are teetering, and some are hanging on with nothing but grit, humor, and stubborn pride. Yet, in true American fashion, these cities aren't giving up quietly. They complain loudly, innovate where they can, and find ways to survive, even if it's messy, imperfect, or hilarious in hindsight. The lesson? Urban collapse isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a slow, grinding, painfully ironic reality check. And maybe, just maybe, that's what keeps the American spirit alive. The ability to laugh at the chaos while trying, ever so stubbornly, to keep moving forward.